Please tell them I'm your wife, she whispered to him at the airport. Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, 6:40 a.m. The departures hall was already crowded with travelers dragging suitcases, balancing coffee cups, and hurrying toward security. In the middle of all the movement stood one young woman who couldn't seem to move at all. Lily Morgan clutched the handle of her suitcase so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. Tears blurred her vision as she stared at the airline service desk for what felt like the 100th time. The airline representative looked genuinely sorry. I'm afraid only immediate family members are allowed into the restricted medical area. Lily swallowed. I am family. Can you prove your relationship? Her voice disappeared. My mother passed away 3 years ago. My stepfather. He's all I have left. The woman sighed sympathetically. I understand. I truly do. But these are emergency protocols. I'm sorry. Lily closed her eyes. 40 minutes earlier, her stepfather had suffered a massive heart attack while flying from Portland to Seattle. The plane had made an emergency landing. He had been rushed to the airport medical center before an ambulance could transfer him to the hospital. Only immediate family members were allowed inside until his condition stabilized. Her mother's marriage certificate wasn't with her. Neither were any legal documents proving her relationship. Rules were rules, and time was running out. Lily turned away before the tears could embarrass her any further. She pressed a trembling hand over her mouth. Please, I just want to see him. At that exact moment, a man in a charcoal gray overcoat walked past her. Laptop bag, carry-on suitcase, wireless earbuds. His eyes remained on the departure screen above the terminal. Everything about him suggested someone whose day had been planned down to the minute. Lily looked at him, then back at the desk. Something inside her made one reckless decision. She reached out and gently caught the sleeve of his coat. The man stopped, turned. He was older than she first thought, mid-30s. Calm, composed, the kind of face that rarely showed surprise. Until now, Lily looked directly into his eyes. Please. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. Tell them I'm your wife. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. The sounds of rolling suitcases and boarding announcements seemed to disappear. The man blinked once. I'm sorry. What? I know how insane this sounds. Fresh tears filled Lily's eyes. But my stepfather is dying. They won't let me in. I only need 30 minutes. I swear I'll disappear afterward. The man studied her carefully. There was panic in her voice. Not manipulation. Not calculation. Just fear. He glanced toward the airline employee, then back at Lily. My name is Ethan Brooks. Lily Morgan. I'm asking you to lie. I know. I don't like lying. I can see that. His jaw tightened. For 35 years, Ethan Brooks had lived by a simple principle. If everyone followed the rules, the world became easier to understand. His company operated that way. His employees expected that. His life depended on that. And yet, standing in front of him was a woman who looked as though the world had already broken enough rules against her. He let out a slow breath, then nodded once. All right. Relief washed over Lily so quickly that she nearly cried again. Thank you. You don't have to thank me yet. They haven't believed us. The airline representative looked up as they approached. Ethan spoke first. My wife needs to see her father. The woman studied them, then smiled politely. I'll just need to verify a few details. Lily's heart stopped. How long have you been married? Neither of them answered. The silence stretched. The employee tilted her head. Your anniversary? Lily's brain completely emptied. She glanced desperately at Ethan. Tuesday? The employee frowned. You got married on a Tuesday? Ethan didn't miss a beat. We did. Lily looked at him in disbelief. He continued calmly. It was less expensive. The employee blinked, then laughed. I've actually heard worse reasons. Lily nodded far too enthusiastically. We're very practical. Ethan looked at her sideways. She smiled weakly. The woman typed something into the computer, then handed them 2 temporary visitor badges. Go ahead. The medical team will escort you. Lily stared at the badges for a second before realizing what had happened. They had done it. Without thinking, she turned toward Ethan, wrapped both arms around him, and hugged him tightly. It lasted only 2 seconds, maybe 3, long enough for Ethan to completely freeze. He couldn't remember the last time someone had hugged him without warning, without asking, without expecting anything. No business agenda, no celebration, just overwhelming gratitude. Lily stepped back immediately. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. It's fine. He adjusted his coat, clearly unsure what to do with his hands. We should go. She nodded. Together, they walked toward the restricted hallway. Neither of them noticed the wedding band displayed on the advertisement beside the entrance. Neither of them realized that a lie invented in less than 30 seconds had quietly become the beginning of the truest relationship either of them would ever have. The 30 minutes turned into almost 2 hours. Lily sat outside the treatment room with trembling hands while doctors rushed in and out of the airport medical clinic. Ethan stayed. He could have left. His flight to New York was boarding. His assistant called twice, then 3 times. He silenced every call. Not because he knew Lily, because no one should wait alone outside a room where someone they loved might never walk out again. Finally, the attending physician stepped into the hallway. Mr. Morgan is stable. Lily stood so quickly her visitor badge slipped to the floor. The heart attack was severe, but we treated him in time. We're transferring him to Seattle General. You can see him for a few minutes. The words barely finished before tears streamed down her face. She thanked every nurse she passed. When she entered the room, her stepfather looked pale, exhausted, but awake. He smiled weakly the moment he saw her. I knew you'd find a way. Lily laughed through her tears. I almost didn't. He squeezed her hand, then glanced toward Ethan, who waited quietly near the doorway. His tired eyes softened. Your husband, Lily almost choked. Before she could explain, Ethan stepped forward politely. I'm Ethan. Mr. Morgan smiled. Thank you for taking care of my girl. Ethan looked at Lily for a brief second, then answered simply. It wasn't difficult. After several emotional minutes, the nurses prepared the transfer. Lily kissed her stepfather's forehead. I'll meet you at the hospital. You'd better. And don't lose your husband before then. She laughed helplessly. I'll do my best. Outside the room, she finally let herself breathe. Then she turned toward Ethan. I don't even know how to thank you. You don't have to. I do. If you hadn't stopped, she couldn't finish the sentence. Instead, she hugged him again, this time more carefully. He hesitated only for a heartbeat before gently patting her shoulder. An unfamiliar feeling settled somewhere inside him. It wasn't discomfort. It wasn't exactly comfort either. It was simply different. Then the airport speakers interrupted the moment. Attention passengers. Due to severe winter weather moving across the East Coast, all outbound flights are temporarily suspended. A second announcement followed almost immediately. Several departures have now been canceled. Please contact your airline for rebooking. Lily and Ethan looked toward the departure board. Read, canceled and C5 canceled, including Ethan's flight. He closed his eyes briefly. My meeting. Lily winced. I'm so sorry. He shook his head. It isn't your fault. Within 20 minutes, every airline counter was overwhelmed. Families argued. Business travelers searched for alternatives. Children slept on suitcases. Outside, heavy snow swallowed the runways. The storm wasn't going anywhere. Neither were they. The airport hotel became the only realistic option. Unfortunately, so had everyone else's idea. The receptionist typed rapidly before looking up with an apologetic smile. We have exactly 1 room left. Ethan nodded. We'll take it. The receptionist continued. 2 queen beds. Lily visibly relaxed. Then the receptionist smiled brightly. Wonderful. She began typing again. Mr. and Mrs. Brooks. Both Ethan and Lily answered at exactly the same time. Yes? They looked at each other, then immediately looked away. The receptionist didn't notice. Here are your keys. We've already extended the complimentary breakfast to your reservation. Lily accepted the key card. Thank you. As they walked toward the elevator, she whispered, I think we're becoming alarmingly convincing. Ethan replied without missing a step. I'd rather not test that theory. Their room was surprisingly comfortable. 2 beds, 1 large window overlooking snow-covered runways, a small table, 1 coffee machine that looked older than the airport itself. Lily placed her suitcase beside 1 bed. I promise I'll stay out of your way. You don't have to. I snore. I sleep through earthquakes. She smiled. Good. I occasionally talk in my sleep. What do you say? I've never been awake to hear it. That earned something remarkable. A quiet laugh. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a genuine sound escaping before Ethan could stop it. Lily stared at him. You laugh. I've been accused of it. I wasn't sure you knew how. I wasn't sure either. That evening they ordered room service burgers because every restaurant in the terminal had a 2-hour wait. Lily accidentally squeezed ketchup onto her own sleeve instead of her fries. I've done it again. Ethan looked at the stain. You missed the food entirely. I have exceptional aim. For the wrong target. She laughed so hard she nearly dropped her drink. Dinner stretched longer than either expected. Without the distractions of meetings and flights, conversation came surprisingly easily. Lily told him about the children she worked with, about tiny victories that adults never noticed. The first word spoken after months of silence. The first step without fear. The first smile after weeks of therapy. Ethan really listened. Then, almost reluctantly, he admitted that he couldn't remember the last time anyone had spoken about work with that much joy. You love what you do, he said. I do. What about you? Ethan looked out at the falling snow. I used to. Silence settled between them. Not awkward. Comfortable. Lily noticed him absent-mindedly turning a simple silver ring around his finger. She had assumed it was part of their little performance. Now she looked more closely. The ring wasn't new. It was worn smooth with years of use. You can ask, Ethan said quietly, without looking up. She blinked. I was trying not to. You've been staring at my hand for almost a minute. She smiled sheepishly. I wasn't counting. He slowly removed the ring and placed it on the table. It's not a wedding ring. It belonged to my father. Lily frowned. But everyone assumes. I let them. Why? Ethan looked at the ring for a long moment before answering. Because it's easier than explaining why a man who has everything always goes home alone. Lily's smile faded. So, there isn't a Mrs. Brooks? He met her eyes. No, there never has been. Outside, snow continued falling across the silent runways. Inside the quiet hotel room, the little lie that had brought them together suddenly felt much more complicated. Because somewhere between pretending to be husband and wife, Lily realized the man beside her had never truly belonged to anyone at all. The snowstorm lasted well into the next morning. Flights remained grounded. The airport became a tiny temporary city where strangers shared charging outlets, traded travel stories, and waited together for skies to clear. For Ethan Brooks, waiting had never been easy. His calendar had always been measured in 15-minute meetings and carefully planned departures. Now there was nowhere to go. And strangely, he didn't mind as much as he thought he would. After breakfast, Lily noticed the silver ring resting beside Ethan's coffee cup. She picked it up carefully. It really belonged to your father? Ethan nodded. He wore it every day. You said it wasn't a wedding ring. It isn't. My parents never bought matching rings. My father couldn't afford one when they got married. So years later, after his business finally succeeded, he bought a single ring. For himself. He said, Ethan smiled faintly. Your promises don't become stronger because they're expensive. Lily rolled the ring gently between her fingers. It's beautiful. It reminds me to keep mine. What promise? Ethan looked through the hotel window toward the snow-covered runway. My parents died in a car accident 12 years ago. His voice remained calm, almost too calm. My father asked me one thing before he passed. Don't sell the ring. Don't throw it away. Keep remembering that love isn't measured by how long someone stays. It's measured by how well you carry them after they're gone. Lily's eyes softened. So you've worn it ever since? He nodded. Every day. I suppose people assume I'm married. You never correct them. Usually, it's easier. Lily understood. Sometimes people accepted simple lies because the truth required too much explaining. By noon, the airport announced another delay. Passengers groaned. Children complained. Someone started playing guitar near the food court. Lily looked around. We're officially trapped. Ethan checked the departure board. Apparently. So, she grinned. What do people like you do for fun? People like me? CEOs. We reschedule meetings. She laughed. I was afraid you'd say something like that. Near the central atrium, the airport had organized games for stranded travelers. Trivia contests, mini-golf, puzzle races, anything to distract frustrated passengers. Lily grabbed Ethan's sleeve. Come on. No, please. I don't participate in public competitions. That's exactly why you should. Before he could protest again, she had already signed both of them up. 20 minutes later, they somehow won. Mostly because Lily knew every answer in the movie trivia round, while Ethan solved a nearly impossible engineering puzzle in less than 30 seconds. The host handed them a prize. Congratulations. A matching travel pillow set for couples. The audience applauded. Lily burst into laughter. Ethan stared at the two heart-shaped neck pillows. I believe we've been misclassified. The host winked. Happens to the happiest couples. Lily held one pillow against Ethan's chest. It matches your personality. It's gray. Exactly. And yours? She slipped on the bright yellow one. It smiles. It has a face. See? I told you. People nearby laughed. Ethan shook his head. I've never won something so embarrassing. You'll treasure it forever. I sincerely hope not. That afternoon, the storm finally began to weaken. Announcements resumed. Flights would restart the following morning. For the first time, both of them realized their strange little bubble inside the airport was almost over. They spent the evening wandering through the nearly empty terminal, looking at souvenir shops, sharing fries, watching airplanes being de-iced outside enormous windows. Conversation no longer required effort. Silence no longer felt uncomfortable. At one point, Lily sat beside Ethan overlooking the runways. I used to think airports were sad places, she admitted. Why? Because someone is always saying goodbye. And now? She smiled. I think they're also where people find each other. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. I've never thought of them that way. That's because you've probably spent your entire life trying to leave them. She wasn't wrong. Later that evening, they found themselves waiting once again near their departure gate. Lily had been awake for almost 24 hours. The emotional exhaustion finally caught up with her. I'm definitely staying awake, she mumbled. 2 seconds later, her head slowly tipped sideways, resting gently against Ethan's shoulder. She never noticed. Ethan looked down. She was asleep. A loose strand of hair had fallen across her face. Without thinking, he carefully moved it aside, then remained perfectly still. He didn't want to wake her. For nearly 40 minutes he ignored emails, ignored phone calls, ignored everything except the quiet weight resting against his shoulder. It felt surprisingly peaceful. Perhaps because, for the first time in years, someone trusted him enough to fall asleep beside him. Lily woke with a start. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I fell asleep. You did. I was drooling, wasn't I? Ethan considered it. A little. She covered her face. I can never see you again. I think that would be difficult. Why? Our flights leave from neighboring gates. She groaned. This is officially the worst day of my dignity. He laughed. No, I've seen worse. Please don't tell me. I won't. She smiled. Thank you. Just then, Lily's phone vibrated. An email notification. She opened it casually, then froze. Congratulations. We are pleased to offer you a full-time position at Boston Children's Rehabilitation Center, her dream hospital, the opportunity she had hoped for since college, a chance that came only once. She stared at the screen, unable to smile, unable to breathe. Ethan noticed the change in her expression. Everything okay? Lily slowly locked her phone, then forced the smallest smile. It's nothing, but deep inside she already knew. The airport that had unexpectedly brought two strangers together might also become the place where their paths would quietly begin to separate. The storm cleared the following morning. Flights resumed. Suitcases rolled toward gates. Travelers who had spent the night becoming temporary friends returned to being strangers again. Lily's stepfather was recovering at Seattle General, and Ethan's New York meeting had been rescheduled. Technically, their 30-minute marriage was over. Neither of them seemed ready to admit it. Before leaving the airport, Ethan stopped at a small jewelry kiosk near the terminal. The hospital transfer team still believed Lily was Mrs. Brooks, and one observant nurse had already noticed that only Ethan wore a ring. So he bought the least expensive silver band available. It turned Lily's finger green within 2 days. She sent him a photograph. Your commitment is attacking my circulation, Ethan replied 3 minutes later. That ring cost $27. Please lower your expectations. It became the first of many messages. At first, they called for practical reasons. Ethan asked about her stepfather. Lily reminded him to sleep before midnight. He sent coffee to the rehabilitation center where she worked. She sent him photographs of the terrible travel pillow he had claimed he would throw away, but had somehow placed in the back seat of his car. Then the calls became less practical. Ethan called after work simply to hear how her day had gone. Lily called during lunch because a 6-year-old patient had proposed to her using a plastic dinosaur ring, and she believed Ethan needed to know he had competition. They began having dinner together. Not every night, just often enough that Ethan's assistant started leaving his evenings unscheduled without being asked. He no longer stayed at the office until the cleaning staff arrived. He stopped treating every unanswered email as an emergency. On Wednesdays, he drove Lily to visit her stepfather. On Sundays, she convinced him to eat somewhere that did not require a reservation. Once, she took him to a diner where the waitress called him honey and poured coffee without asking. Ethan looked alarmed. Lily leaned across the table. She likes you. She hasn't spoken to me. She gave you extra whipped cream. I didn't order whipped cream. Exactly. It's serious. He laughed more easily now. Lily noticed. So did everyone else. 3 weeks after the airport, a large box arrived at Ethan's office. His college friend Marcus had seen a photograph online of Ethan and Lily walking out of Seattle General together. Lily was wearing the cheap silver band. Ethan was wearing his father's ring. Marcus reached the only reasonable conclusion. Ethan Brooks had secretly gotten married. Inside the box was a crystal serving tray engraved with Mr. and Mrs. Brooks, forever begins now. Ethan stared at it in horror. His assistant tried very hard not to smile. That evening, he showed it to Lily. She read the engraving and burst into laughter. You should call him. I did. What did you say? That I'm not married. And? He said denial is common in the first month. Lily laughed so hard she had to sit down. Within a week, 2 more wedding gifts arrived. Matching bathrobes, a cookbook titled Meals for Newlyweds, and, for reasons neither understood, a decorative wooden sign that read, The Brooks Family, Established Tuesday. Lily held up the sign. At least they remembered our anniversary. Ethan covered his face with one hand. The joke should have grown old. Instead, it made the space between them feel warmer, more dangerous, because pretending had become easy, too easy. One evening, Ethan cooked dinner at his apartment, or attempted to. The pasta was overcooked. The sauce came from a jar. He had set the table with such precision that Lily was afraid to move her glass. Still, it felt more intimate than any expensive restaurant. After dinner, she stood beside the window overlooking the city and removed the cheap ring from her finger. The green mark beneath it had almost faded. She placed the band on the table. I should give this back. Ethan looked at it. Why? The emergency is over. He said nothing. Lily tried to smile. I'm no longer required to be Mrs. Brooks. The words landed more heavily than she intended. Ethan picked up the ring. For 1 second, she thought he would accept it. Instead, he closed her fingers around it. Keep it. It's terrible jewelry. I know. It stains me. I noticed. Then why? His thumb rested briefly against her hand. Because it reminds me of the first impulsive thing I've done in years. Lily looked up. And do you regret it? No. The answer came too quickly to misunderstand. For a moment, neither moved. The city lights glowed behind them. Ethan leaned closer. Not enough to kiss her. Enough for both of them to know he wanted to. Then Lily's phone vibrated. Boston. The offer deadline. Tomorrow. The moment broke. That night, Lily sat beside her stepfather's hospital bed and told him everything. The job, the airport, the fake marriage. Ethan, her stepfather, listened quietly. You love him, he said. Lily looked down at the cheap ring. I might. And he loves you? I don't know. But if I stay, he'll change his life for me. Her stepfather smiled sadly. Maybe he wants to. That's what scares me. Ethan had only just begun living outside his office. She could not become another obligation he carried, because he was too honorable to let go. The next morning, Lily accepted the position in Boston. She read the confirmation twice before pressing send. Then she closed her eyes. She told herself she was protecting his future. She did not admit how much it felt like breaking her own. On her finger, the $27 ring caught the morning light. It had started as part of a lie, but when Lily tried to remove it again, she couldn't. 3 weeks later, Lily stood in the same airport where everything had begun, Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, Gate C-12, the place where she had once grabbed a stranger's sleeve and whispered words that had changed both their lives. "Please, tell them I'm your wife." Now she held a one-way ticket to Boston. Her suitcase was packed. Her stepfather was healthy enough to walk her to security. He hugged her tightly. "You know," he said with a smile, "you've looked toward the entrance every 30 seconds. I have not." "You just did," Lily sighed. "I'm not waiting for anyone." "No, no," he smiled knowingly. "I didn't ask." When boarding was announced, Ethan still hadn't arrived. Lily checked her phone. No missed calls. No messages. Nothing. She smiled sadly. Of course, he respected her decision. That was exactly the kind of man he was. She had hoped for something unreasonable. She had hoped he would make leaving difficult. Instead, he had loved her enough to let her go. The boarding line began moving. Passengers scanned their tickets one by one. Lily stepped forward. One family remained ahead of her, then only one businessman. The airline agent smiled. "Boarding pass, please." Lily reached into her bag. Behind her, footsteps echoed through the terminal. Someone shouted. "Wait!" She froze. The voice was familiar. She turned. Ethan Brooks was running through the terminal, his coat half-buttoned, his tie crooked, carrying nothing except a passport and 2 boarding passes. Completely out of breath, completely unlike himself. He stopped in front of her, trying to catch his breath. "You ran. I hate running. You look like it." He laughed despite himself, then handed her the first boarding pass, Boston. She looked up, confused. He handed her the second, Seattle. She stared at both tickets in silence. "I don't understand." "You shouldn't. I bought both." Lily looked from one ticket to the other. "Ethan," he shook his head gently, "I'm not here to ask you to stay." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm not going to decide your future." He took a slow breath. "I've spent my entire life making decisions. For my company, for my employees, for everyone around me. I'm done deciding for the people I love." He pointed toward the 2 boarding passes. "One goes to Boston, one stays in Seattle. You choose." She opened her mouth. No words came. He smiled softly. "I only wanted one thing. This time, wherever you choose to go, I want to go with you." Silence surrounded them. The airline agent quietly stepped away. No one interrupted. Lily looked at the 2 tickets one last time, then slowly tore the Seattle boarding pass in half. Ethan's face fell for a fraction of a second. Before he could hide it, Lily smiled. "Good." She held up the Boston ticket. "Because our flight is boarding." His eyes widened. "Our?" She nodded. "You said you were coming. I believed you." For the first time in years, Ethan Brooks boarded a plane without knowing exactly what waited on the other side. For the first time, he didn't need to, because she was sitting beside him. 1 year later, Seattle-Tacoma International Airport looked exactly as it had on the morning everything began. The same departure board, the same coffee shop, the same announcements echoing through the terminal. Only this time, no one was crying. Instead, people were smiling. Tucked away inside the airport was a small interfaith chapel overlooking the runways. It wasn't large, just enough room for family and close friends. Sunlight poured through the tall windows as airplanes lifted gracefully into the sky beyond them. Lily stood at the entrance in a simple ivory wedding dress. Her stepfather waited beside her. Healthy, stronger. His eyes glistened as he offered his arm. "Ready?" She smiled. "I've been ready since gate C-12. He laughed softly. "I always liked that answer." Together, they walked toward the altar. Ethan stood waiting, looking unusually nervous for a man who negotiated billion-dollar contracts without blinking. Marcus leaned over from the front row. "You know, this wedding happened because I accidentally bought you a serving tray." Ethan smiled. "I'll never let you forget that." The ceremony began. The minister looked warmly at the couple. "So, tell us, when did you first meet?" Lily looked at Ethan, then laughed. "I asked him to pretend to be my husband. The guests laughed. Even the minister smiled. I've heard many love stories. That one is definitely new. The laughter faded into quiet anticipation. Ethan reached into his pocket, not for his father's ring. That remained safely on his right hand, exactly where it had always been. Instead, he opened a small velvet box. Inside rested 2 simple wedding bands, real ones. He took Lily's hands gently. His voice was steady. The first day we met, you only needed a husband for 30 minutes. Tears gathered in Lily's eyes. I never imagined that 30 minutes would become the best day of my life. He slipped the ring onto her finger. This one isn't borrowed. It isn't part of a story. It isn't pretending. He smiled through his own tears. Lily Morgan, I want to be your husband, for every minute of the rest of my life. Lily laughed softly as tears rolled down her cheeks. She looked at the new ring, then at the cheap silver band she had quietly kept in her bouquet all year. Fortunately, she whispered, I don't have to pretend anymore. She placed the wedding band onto Ethan's finger. I choose you, not for 30 minutes. Not because I need help, but because you're home. Outside the chapel windows, another airplane lifted into the bright blue sky. The sound filled the room just as the minister smiled. You may kiss your wife. This time, the word wasn't part of a lie. The camera slowly pulled back through the chapel doors. Past the waiting area, past the departure boards, past gate C12. The airport continued doing what airports had always done, sending people toward new beginnings. Only now, the 2 strangers whose story had started with one desperate lie were beginning the greatest journey of all, together. Sometimes, the greatest love stories don't begin with, I love you. They begin with, please help me. Lily only needed a husband for 30 minutes. Ethan only meant to help a stranger in the middle of an airport. Neither of them could have imagined that one small act of kindness would become the beginning of a lifetime together. Perhaps that's the lesson this story leaves behind. Love isn't always about perfect timing, grand gestures, or fairy tale beginnings. Sometimes it's about the person who chooses to stay when they have every reason to keep walking. The person who stands beside you when life feels uncertain. And the person who never asks you to give up your dreams, only to let them walk beside you while you chase them. So here's a question for you. If a complete stranger asked you for help in a moment that could change their life, would you have the courage to say yes? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd truly love to hear your story. And don't forget to subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories. We'll be here with another heartfelt journey waiting for you in our next story. Thanks.